We are reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, 12th chapter, devotional service, text number 12. Śreyo hi jñānam abhyāsāj dhyānam viśiṣyate dhyānāt karma-phala-tyāgas tyāgāc chāntir anantaram śreyaḥ, better, he, certainly, jñānam, knowledge, abhyāsāt, then practice, dhyānāt, the knowledge, dhyānam, meditation, viśiṣyate is considered better, dhyānāt, then meditation, karma-phala-tyāgas, renunciation of the results of fruitive action, tyāgāt, by such renunciation, śāntiḥ, peace, anantaram, thereafter. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation. And better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation one can attain peace of mind. Purport. As mentioned in previous verses, there are two kinds of devotional service. The way of regulative principles and the way of full attachment in love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those who are actually not able to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, it is better to cultivate knowledge. Because by knowledge one can be able to understand his real position. Gradually knowledge will develop to the point of meditation. By meditation one can be able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by a gradual process. There are processes which make one understand that one himself is the Supreme, and that sort of meditation is preferred if one is unable to engage in devotional service. If one is not able to meditate in such a way, then there are prescribed duties as enjoined in the Vedic literatures for the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, which we shall find in the last chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. But in all cases one should give up the result of fruits of labor. This means to employ the result of karma for some good cause. In summary, to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal, there are two processes. One process is by gradual development and the other process is direct. Devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the direct method. And the other method involves renouncing the fruits of one's activities. Then one can come to the stage of knowledge, then to the stage of meditation, then to the stage of understanding the Super Soul, and then to the stage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One may take either the step-by-step process or the direct process. The direct process is not possible for everyone, therefore the indirect process is also good. It is, however, to be understood that the indirect process is not recommended for Arjuna because he is already at the stage of loving devotional service. to the Supreme Lord. It is for others who are not at this stage. For them, the gradual process of renunciation, knowledge, meditation, and the realization of the Supersoul and Brahman should be followed. But as far as Bhagavad-Gita is concerned, it is the direct method that is stressed. Everyone is advised to take to the direct method and surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Om Ajnanat Timirantasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yanam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Savarantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakandvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Govika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastade Datta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Brijamano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare śreyo jñānam abhyāsāj dhyānam viśiṣyate karma-phala-tyāgas chāntir anantaram. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is the renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation one can attain peace of mind. In this chapter, so Arjuna is inquiring about spiritual activity, spiritual life, about engaging in spiritual activities with the aim to merge in the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth, or the process of devotional service. So Krishna is saying actually both of them are fine. And even in the Srimad Bhagavatam it is mentioned in the 5th canto by Rishabdev in an incarnation that there are two kinds of transcendentalists who are known as Mahatmas, great souls. One, those who are meditating on the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. And secondly, those who are engaged in devotional service, who understand that the absolute truth is a person, the supreme person, and then they engage in devotional service. Throughout the Vedic literatures, so actually two panthas, two margs, two paths are explained. The impersonal and the impersonal pursuit in quest of the absolute truth. So Krishna is answering that also again, that both are alright, but those who are meditating on an impersonal aspect of the absolute truth, they may achieve the goal after long practice. And then whereas those who are engaged in devotional service, for them I'm the swift deliverer from the cycle of birth and death. They can quickly become free by engaging in devotional service. And after that, he's clearly mentioning that those who are most exalted are actually those who are completely engaged in devotional service with body, mind and words, or completely fixed. And then he's explaining because it is actually not so easy to completely be absorbed in devotional service, tan, man, vacha, with the body, mind and the words. But one should endeavor. So if one is not able to fix his mind on Krishna always, then he should follow the regulative principles of devotional service known as sadhana bhakti. If he cannot do that, then he should simply engage in some activity, in some devotional activity, or he may also engage in some occupation according to Vana ashram in order to take care of his necessities, bodily necessities, and then he may also offer some of the fruit of his activities to the Lord. So then here, then also, if one is not able to do that, then one should simply try to be endeavoring to be engaged in some kind of spiritual activity. Be conscious that actually we are not this body, we are spirit soul, and try to be detached. So again here in this verse, Krishna is summarizing, saying that if you cannot take to this practice of devotional service, following the rules and regulations, then you should engage in cultivation of knowledge. Actually, cultivation of knowledge is important. Of course, it should be different kinds of knowledge are there. There's material knowledge and there's spiritual knowledge. So one has to cultivate spiritual knowledge. And of course, as explained also, so the impersonalists are there, they're also cultivating knowledge. And then the personalists also, for them, for the devotees, it is also important to cultivate knowledge. But then is mentioning also here, but still simply then, rather than simply trying to gain some knowledge, better than that is actually meditation. One should try to remember ultimately the absolute truth. And here again, because meditation usually means on an object, to meditate on nothing is a little difficult actually. And so it is not true meditation actually. Meditation usually implies you meditating on some thing, vastu. And the real thing, vastu, that is the Supreme Lord. That is real meditation. So meditating on nothing actually, it makes no sense. Actually it is nonsense. Meditating on nothing. On the void, on nothing. And but simply that is also not sufficient. Because we are in this world, we have this body, so one has to use the body also. One has to be active. Not simply meditating, only that the mind is engaged in some meditation, which of course it is fine, but some activity should be there. So the body is there and the body should be engaged. But then also it is mentioned that, so if one is engaged in activity, then usually that there will be some result of that. That the activity means should be some positive result should be there. That is mentioned in the scriptures again. Also there's karma, vikarma and akarma. So karma ultimately, so that means to engage in activity and then ultimately then to give up some of the result to the Lord, karma yoga. Vikarma means activities which are against the Vedic literatures. And then akarma means transcendental activity, meaning doing some activity but for the pleasure of the Lord, not being attached to the result. And the result, if the result is there, and usually if there's some activity, the result will be there. And that should be offered to the Lord with priti purvak, with love, for the pleasure of the Lord, not for our own pleasure, whereas karma means for our own pleasure, ultimately trying to get a result, and then for our own pleasure. But also, because some knowledge is there, giving something to the Lord. And by doing that, so as explained here, then a shanti, peace will be obtained. If one is not attached to the result of one's activities, first of all, and second of all, if there is some result, then giving that to the Lord, at least part of it, and then some satisfaction is there. And if it is fully surrendered to the Lord, if the motive is there to simply offer to the Lord, then actually transcendental peace will be there. Full happiness will be there. Complete peace will be there. So that is ultimately required. So Srila Prabhupada also, the purport is stressing on that point, and ultimately that we have to do everything with love and devotion for the pleasure of the Lord. Engage in devotional service. But also in the beginning here the purport is explaining again also, and is repeating that later on also, that there are two kinds of devotional service. The way of regulative principles, following rules and regulations and gradually trying to advance in spiritual life. And the one is the way of full attachment in love to the Supreme Lord. That means direct devotional service. And also, it is throughout the Vedic literatures, it is mentioned, and the acharyas have explained, that sadhana bhakti is there, following the rules and regulations, known also as Vaidhi bhakti, and even as explained by Prahlad Maharaj, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam. So this is known as Vidhi Marg, hearing about the Lord, speaking about the Lord, then engaging in devotional service, trying to remember the Lord, and then engaging in devotional service, worshipping the deities, offering prayers to the Lord with the mood of Dasyam, I am the eternal servant of Krishna. And so that is actually perfect knowledge, to be properly situated, to understand I am not this body, I am spirit soul, I am the servant of Krishna, I have to engage in devotional service. That is the constitutional position of the living entity, Jivera Sopoya Krishnera Nityadas. So one should be situated on that platform. So that is the proper situation for the jiva, for the spirit soul, the embodied spirit soul who is practicing devotional service. But so it is a gradual step, as we know also from Shraddha to Prem. One has faith, and one is approaching a spiritual master, following his instructions, engaging in devotional service, and then the heart, the consciousness becomes cleansed. Attain, nata, nivriti, then one can be fixed. And after that ruchi comes, one will have a taste for devotional activities. And then the emotions are coming from the heart. And then comes, as explained by Prabhupada, also in several places in the Bhagavatam, then comes Ragamarg. The spontaneous attraction and love will be there. Sakyam Atmani Vedanam. One understands that Krishna is my best friend. I am not simply the servant of Krishna, but is my Prananad, Aradhyadev, Ishtadev. He is the Lord of my life. And then one will engage in devotional service with some with bhakti, with priti, with love, with devotional feelings, and that is ultimately required. And as Gaudiya Vaishnavas following the eternal associates of the Lord in Braj, Ragatmik Jan, those who have deep love for Krishna, following them, as we are discussing in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, how Mother Yashoda is always thinking about Krishna, and then glorifying Krishna all the time and engaging in devotional activities for the pleasure of Krishna. So by studying, by seeing the beauty of Yashoda Devi, studying her devotional attitude, her devotional service, then actually the same mood of Vatsalya Prem, of parental affection, may come in our heart. Or if we are attracted to the friends of Krishna, Sudam, Sridam, and we hear about their wonderful activities, and meditate on them, study the different emotions, then may come in our mood. Similarly with the gopis, who are the most exalted of all associates of Krishna. So that is actually the direct devotional service ultimately, which is to be acquired. So, but it is a gradual step, and as Prabhupada is explaining, that of course in the purport again also is explaining about if one is not able to even follow sadhana bhakti, which we have seen that many times devotees, they join and they cannot follow the principles of sadhana bhakti. So then one should just simply try to be at least in the knowledge that Krishna, yes, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And let me be a good person. And let me at least sometimes do something for Krishna. And then, of course, Prabhupada is also explaining, if one is able to then again continuously, or if one is trying to improve, then one can be more meditative and try to think more about Krishna. And then again he's explaining about the personalists and then the personalists, and it is very clear that the devotees who are engaged in devotional service, they are properly situated and they are much more superior than the impersonalists. And Prabhupada is making a point also that one has to act according to Vana and Ashram. And especially also towards the end of his life, Prabhupada had mentioned several times that he wants to introduce Vana Ashram, Daivi Vana Ashram, with Krishna in the center. So even in India, of course, Vana Ashram is very well known. Of course, now with the influence of the Western world or culture, then even in the big cities nowadays, nobody cares for Vana Ashram. But still in the villages you can see, and they have some knowledge and they will try to follow the rules and regulations of Vana Ashram to some extent. But ultimately one has to be under the guidance of a pure devotee of the Lord. Then one can properly engage in Vana Ashram with Krishna in the center. And then one can actually advance in spiritual life. So Vana Ashram is important because one is not able to immediately engage in pure devotional service in the conditioned state. So therefore we have to, the spiritual master, he will understand the psychophysical nature of the disciples, and then he will try as much as possible to engage him in devotional activities so they can be satisfied in their life, and so they can peacefully engage in devotional service and then advance in devotional life slowly but surely. Of course, sometimes in emergency, the spiritual master will engage the disciple in some activity which may not so much suit his nature, but due to the requirement he will do so, and then the disciple also will understand and he will try to do his best to engage in this activity according to the instruction, or fulfilling the desire and the instruction of the spiritual master, for his pleasure, for the pleasure of the Lord. So Prabhupada again is pointing out and stressing that there are two processes, the indirect or the gradual process, and then the direct method. And so the gradual is also more, Prabhupada is hinting at usually the gradual process. So this is actually even for those who are not engaged in devotional service, and explaining that then they are cultivating knowledge, trying to meditate, trying to understand the absolute truth, and usually impersonal conception is there, and then trying to meditate on the super soul. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yad jñānam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti sabdate. So that is from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is mentioned that the learned scholars, they will they understand the absolute truth in three phases: the impersonal concept of the absolute truth, and then the super soul situated in everyone's heart, that is superior to impersonal realization of the absolute truth, and then the highest and most complete and the actual position is that the Supreme Lord is a person, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with all opulences, Sara Aishwarya Purna. And then ultimately one has to be engaged in the devotional service. But even in the devotional process, so it is usually also a gradual process. It is not simply by taking up devotional service, very quickly one can come to the highest stage. Of course, still, by engaging in devotional service under the direction of the spiritual master, chanting the holy names, the devotee can quite swiftly advance in devotional life. But that also depends on the purva samskara, the previous impressions, and on the favorable situation in this life, the good association, and the sincere and serious endeavor of the devotee practicing. And then that will determine his advancement. It may be done according to all these factors. It may be a little slow or maybe more fast. And we can see practically. Some devotees are joining and they're quickly advancing. Some are joining, they're very slowly advancing. So usually due to previous impressions, so that will also determine the process and the rapid advancement in the present life. But then so ultimately one has to come to this platform of engaging in indirectly surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with love and affection. So Prabhupada is clearly stressing that, and that is understood from this chapter also. And actually then the next verses are there, the text 13 till 20, and then again more specifically showing the different symptoms of the devotee who is properly engaged in devotional service. And due to his sincere engagement in devotional service, and then naturally the transcendental qualities of a devotee will manifest, as we will see in the next verses. And then he's explaining that devotee is very dear to me, same priya, mad bhaktanam same priya. So the next verses that it is nicely explained that who is dear to Krishna, what are the symptoms of a devotee who is dear to Krishna, how is he behaving, how is he acting, what is his consciousness. So that is very nicely explained in the next verses. So the devotee engaged in devotional service under the direction of the spiritual master trying to engage body, mind and words in devotional activities, slowly but surely becomes purified in consciousness. And then the transcendental symptoms, they will manifest. The transcendental qualities will naturally manifest. But in the beginning, so we have to know what are the qualities of devotees, and then one has to see our heart and try to see that we can become free from the unwanted things in our heart. So it is there, by engaging in devotional service, automatically good qualities will manifest. At the same time, we have to also endeavor and see that we can become free from unwanted desires, from unwanted creepers. So there is a creeper of devotional service, which should grow and grow, and then attain the lotus feet of Krishna in Golok, as explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita very nicely. So, but as the devotional service is manifested, and so the creeper is growing, but then some also unwanted creepers, just like in the garden. So some plants are there, and then some trees are there planted by the gardener, and one has to then give water. That is the process of hearing and chanting. And sometimes one has to, of course, put some fertilizer. But then one has to take out also the unwanted creepers, unwanted weeds. One has to take them out and throw them away. So similarly, sometimes as the consciousness becomes purified, but still then some unwanted desires are manifested, and they have to be taken out and thrown away. So it goes both, that we engage in devotional service, then good qualities are manifested, but at the same time one has to be careful also. Like the gardener, he has to take very nice care of the garden. He has to give water every day. He has to put some fertilizer. He has to see that the bugs are not destroying, or the lizard, or different, or even animals, that are not coming and causing harm. And also it is mentioned, one has to especially be careful of aparad, offenses, towards the Lord, towards the Vaishnavas, towards all the living entities. And that is beautifully described also in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And one has to be careful of the mad elephant offense, of criticizing the devotees. As we know, 10 offenses are there, and the first is to criticize the devotees who are engaged in propagating the holy names of the Lord, in preaching Krishna consciousness. And generally anyone who is engaged under the guidance of the spiritual master, so directly or indirectly is engaged in preaching also. As Prabhupada saw, he established this movement to distribute Krishna consciousness. So anyone who is engaged in this movement is directly or indirectly is preaching. Some are directly giving the message or distributing books, and others are supporting. That is also required. So to criticize any devotees, so that is detrimental. Especially criticizing the advanced devotees, that is a mad elephant offense, which can destroy everything. So one has to be careful, and as Prabhupada used to say, one has to, a devotee, first of all, has to try to become a gentleman. One has to try to be a good person. So not simply engaging in devotional service and not being careful and then offending others. So the devotional service, the devotional life is from one point of view also easily performed and joyfully performed, but at the same time one has to also guard against offenses, one has to be careful, and one has to be very sincere and serious. And one has to be introspective. Rather than trying to see fault in others, one should see ourselves. What is this condition of our heart? And be positive. Even Krishna, you can see he's most positive person. Of course, Krishna is the the embodiment of all qualities, of all good qualities, to the highest degree. So Krishna is most positive, and is explaining how different devotees are there. And one who is always thinking of me is most dear to me. But then anyone who is engaged in devotional service, so Krishna will appreciate. And Prabhupada also used to say, even if one is doing a little service, Krishna will appreciate. But just doing a little service and then the other time, most of the time being engaged in material activities, that will be not very fruitful then. Some fruit will be there of the little seva, but it will take time to advance more. But we should try to make advancement as much as possible in this lifetime. We should try to become pure devotees. We should try to come to the platform of pure devotional service. But it is not easy to come to the highest stage, but one should try one's best to make as much advancement as possible to the highest stage. Any questions? Yes.
Today we are discussing this subject also regarding yesterday morning we are discussing about the
Ragatmika and Raganuga Bhakti, yes.
So, my understanding is the direct process is Ragatmika Bhakti.
No. Not correct. Ragatmik Bhakti is not the direct progress. Ragatmik Bhakti, that is the devotional service of the pure devotees of Krishna and Braj. Srimati Radharani, the gopis, Maria Yashoda, Nanda Baba, Sudam, Sridam, Madhumangal, the friends, Raktak, Patrak, the servants. These are Ragatmik Jan. They have, by nature, they have this deep love for Krishna. Ragatmik. So from the soul, they are spiritual entities, pure devotees of the Lord. Satchinanda the Swarup is there. Nitya Siddha Parikar, eternal associates of the Lord. They were never conditioned, they will never be conditioned. These are known as Nitya Siddha. Eternally liberated. So they have this deep love, and that is Ragatmik Jan, pure devotees. But then here the process of devotional service, that is twofold. One is gradual or indirect, and then there is the direct process. So gradual, that is sadhana bhakti, or even the Mayavadis, they are doing the gradual process. The Mayavadis are below the sadhana bhaktas who are engaged in devotional service. A devotee who may still have many material desire is better than an impersonalist who has no material desire. Is in a higher stage, but it is a gradual process. The Mayavadis, those who are meditating on Paramatma, and the devotees in the beginning stage, they are doing that gradual process. Gradually elevating themselves, following the rules and regulations, or doing karma-yoga, jnana-yoga, ashtanga-yoga. This is the gradual process, and we respect all of them. At least they are trying to advance. Although they don't have full knowledge, they don't have sufficient knowledge, and they don't have the purity or the strength if they engage in devotional service. And then those who are doing the direct process, so those who are firmly fixed in devotional service, and then who are following the eternal associates, that is known as Raganuga Bhakti. Rag Anuga. Rag means those who have this deep love, attachment for Krishna, the eternal associates. Anuga means to follow. So following Maria Yashoda internally, not externally. Externally we always have to be a sadhaka, seva sadhaka rupena, siddha rupena chatrahi. Rupa Goswami is explaining. Tad bhavilip karya vrajalokan sarataha. We should follow the Brijbasis. Externally we follow Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and performing devotional service as sadhakas, but with the intent to satisfy Krishna and to come to the platform of Raganuga Bhakti, Bhav Bhakti. So and then Raganuga Bhakti is Siddha Vasta, Siddha Rupena Chatrahi. one is in purified consciousness on the spiritual platform, more realizing that one is not this body and spirit soul, and then internally, externally still chanting like the other devotees who are just beginning, following Rupa Goswami, following Prabhupada, the spiritual master. But then internally, the meditating on the eternal associates, as explained in the Bhagavatam, just now we are discussing, Maria Yashoda, how she's trying to serve Krishna, what is her mood, and how she's actually engaging in the service of Krishna. So we should meditate on that, and by meditating on that, that mood will come in our heart. Similarly, you see how the friends are dealing with Krishna, what are their emotions, what kinds of emotions are there, and how they're actually serving Krishna, how they're in the loving relationship with Krishna, playing with Krishna. So, meditating on them, then their mood will come in our heart. And then following the gopis, how they are engaging in devotional service, what is their mood, so which is the highest, and then following them, then that mood can come in our heart. So there also the process is that actually we engage in devotional service and the heart becomes purified, and then the natural inclination will come either towards the friendship relationship or the parental relationship or the conjugal relationship. So when the heart becomes cleared of the anarthas, then it will manifest slowly but surely. And then we have to adopt the process of following either Maria Yashoda, or we follow Sudam, Sridam, the friends, or we follow Lalita, Vishaka, Rupa, Rati, Manjari. That is Raganuga Bhakti, and that process we have to adopt. Otherwise we can never go to Golok, not possible. If you don't follow the eternal associates, if you're not engaged in Raganuga Bhakti, you can never go to Golok. So that is Raganuga Bhakti, and that is a direct process. But still you have to follow the rules and regulations. Even those who are following Raganuga Bhakti, still they are following the rules and regulations, just to set the example for others. So therefore even the pure devotees, they follow the rules and regulations. And even if one is not yet so advanced in the platform of Raganuga Bhakti, just in order not to be also falling from that platform, we have to follow the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Bhakti also. Even one is, and that is usually a gradual process, one is following rules and regulations, and one will feel some inclination towards one particular rati, relationship with Krishna, then one will practice under the guidance of the spiritual master, and then slowly but surely we can enter into that realm. And then we can advance, but still always following the rules and regulations. Okay? And that is then the direct process. And that is then, by this way we can swiftly advance. But even just following Vaidhi Bhakti, under the guidance of the spiritual master, that is already the direct process. But then there's a differentiation between normal Vaidhi Bhakti, just following the rules and regulations, and then also engaging devotional service internally with some spontaneous love, which will come eventually. But usually we need the association of those who are situated, or those who are highly advanced, who have love for Krishna. And then it will be easier, and then we take their guidance. There's a process. And then we can advance further and come to Bhav Bhakti. And then we may be liberated. Okay? What is the meaning of Bhav and Bhav Bhakti? There's so many meanings of Bhav. So, but here in regards to Bhav and Bhav Bhakti, so Bhav Bhakti, that is the high stage of devotional service. That is actually practically the liberated state. After Sadhana Bhakti, and in our line of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, after having entered Raganuga Bhakti, following the eternal associates internally, then in purified consciousness, we can come to Bhav Bhakti. On the platform of Bhav Bhakti, the Bhav, the transcendental emotions are coming from the heart. Nothing to do with the mind, the material mind and consciousness. It is coming from the soul, the transcendental emotions. And then is a real actually, then a loving exchange with Krishna. So these are different bhavs are there. For example, first of all, the sthāyi bhav, the permanent mood or ecstasy. Like for example, the parents of Krishna, Maria Yashoda, so that is known as Vatsalya Ras or Vatsalya Bhav. Parental affection. Krishna is my son, or Krishna is just like my son. And then the Sakya Bhav, or Sakya Ras, or Sakya Rati, different names are there. So that is Sudam, Sridam, thinking Krishna is my best friend. And then the different bhavs are there also, but the sthāyi bhav, the permanent mood is Krishna is my friend. And the gopis, the gopi bhav or madhurya bhav, adi ras, madhurya ras, so that is the highest, and they're thinking Krishna is my beloved. And that is explained in Nectar of Devotion. They may have different emotions. The emotions of Maria Yashoda and the emotions of the friends or the emotion of the gopis are different. So these are different bhavs are there. And then, but some are similar, but the sthāyi bhav is different. Krishna is my friend, Krishna is my son, or Krishna is my lover, my beloved. But then the different bhavs are there, also known of transcendental ecstasy, Ashta Sattvic Bhav. Transcendental ecstasies are there, like tears coming from the eyes, like the hair standing on end. So that may be seen in the friends, and those who have parental affection, and the gopis also. And then also 33 Sanchari Bhav or Vyabhichari Bhav. So these are emotions which are coming and going. And even this transcendental ecstasy like crying and all this, so they are not always there. They are coming and going. And also these 33 Sanchari Bhav, like sometimes being transcendentally happy, sometimes transcendentally sad or unhappy, morose, distressed, bewildered. So these are transcendental emotions, but Krishna is in the center. And that is on the pure stage of Bhava Avastha, where the transcendental emotions are coming. So this is all in the category of Bhava Bhakti, where the transcendental emotions are coming from the soul, nothing to do with the material consciousness. In our stage, we may have some bhav also, we may have some mood. Oh, it would be nice to be a gopi, it would be nice to be Krishna's friend. But it is just in our mind. So this is material. But it is nice emotion, and it's good to have, and we should aspire, then we become Krishna's friend, but it is not transcendental. Or sometimes we chanting kirtan, and then we feel some transcendental happiness, or maybe sometimes some tears are coming, but it is not yet pure if we are not pure in consciousness. And then after the kirtan again, then sometimes the stress is there due to the modes of material nature. So there's transcendental bhav and there's material bhav. So bhav bhakti, that is completely transcendental. Devotional service with transcendental emotions. And the fixed one is known as sthāyi bhav, the permanent ecstasy, permanent mood, permanent relationship. And then different emotions are there. All right? Okay. Anything else?
Okay, just now we are discussing the permanent ecstasy.
Permanent ecstasy known as sthāyi bhav. Sthāyi, it is fixed, it is permanent, that will never change.
That is only for
Eternal associates.
eternal associates only.
Yeah. It is there in our heart also, but it is not manifested. It is not manifested because it is like in seed-like form. Our transcendental nature is there, but it is dormant. Like a seed, you have a mango seed, so mango tree will come, but now it is the seed only. But the tree, mango tree, so to say, is in the mango seed. But then you have to put in the ground, you have to put water, it will sprout and then it will become a tree. And then the fruits are there. So our transcendental nature is there, but it is in seed-like form, it is dormant. It is not manifested fully. It is there but not fully manifested. But by the process of devotional service, it will manifest. That is the situation. Okay?
Prabhuji, just now we discussed if I think I am a friend of Krishna, it is material, you said.
What?
If I am thinking I am serving as a Krishna's friend, if I think
Yes, in the beginning stage, now
material, right? Just now.
it is not pure.
Krishna.
It is not pure, no. Because the modes of material nature are there. If you're not pure, your emotions are not pure. Very simple. Your surrender is not pure, is not complete. Your humility is not complete. It is kacha, it is unripe. In the beginning stage, when you're not pure, your humility is not ripe, it is kacha, it is unripe. Your surrender is not complete, it is partial. In the beginning stage, you cannot fully surrender. You may try going to the temple, offering obeisances, and then trying to think of Krishna, but it is not possible to fully surrender in the beginning. You are trying to surrender. You're trying to be humble. You try to have full faith, but in the beginning it's not possible. But we try, and we have to try, and then later on, when the consciousness is pure, then slowly then the real humility will be there, the full faith will be there, and then full surrender is possible. In the advanced stage, in the beginning stage, it's not possible. And the emotions are there, which is fine, but it is not pure. It is not transcendental. It is mixed, because you are under modes of material nature.
The last sentence from Bhagavad-Gita is concerned, it is stressed, the direct method that is stressed.
That the direct method is stressed, yes, of course. The direct method is stressed. So we should not, the Mayavad is already, that we know that is not good. And then we engage in devotional service, but then the purity is not, of course that is, as I'm saying also, if you're doing under the direction of the spiritual master, that is the beginning process of the direct process. When you're engaging under the shelter, if you're under the shelter of a pure devotee, then you're beginning the process of direct devotional service. That is initiation. You're initiated in the direct process. Before initiation, you're thinking, now should I take initiation? Then you see the spiritual master, and he will examine you also. And then he's accepting you, and then you're initiated. Initiation, many times devotees think, okay, now I will be initiated, now I'm perfect. That's it, I reached the goal. First initiation, then second initiation, now that's it, I reached the goal. No. Initiation, that is the beginning process. Now you're beginning the direct process. If you're not initiated and you're engaging in some devotional service, that is nice, that is fine. But then ultimately you have to be initiated under the guidance of a pure devotee. Then you're properly able to advance in the direct process. But still, even there's a gradual process to pure devotional service. And that is bhav bhakti. Now we're doing the sadhana. That is still also gradual. You're in practice. Sadhana means the practice, you're practicing. But you're not established yet firmly in devotional service. Because anarthas, unwanted things are there. But it is the beginning of the direct process when you're initiated and you follow the process. And then when you have bhav bhakti, then you're almost liberated, then you're practically liberated. So therefore you have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, and then you're beginning the direct process. And then as you go on, then the purity will be there, and then the full surrender will be there, full humility will be there, full faith will be there. Okay? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Can you say some symptoms of a devotee that is fully ripened up?
One who is fully ripened.
Yeah, so what are
Yeah.
the symptoms?
The symptoms. Yeah, yes. Well, in the next 7 verses you will see the symptoms. Yeah, come back tomorrow and the next days. But then also symptoms are mentioned in the Bhagavatam or even in the Nectar of Devotion. But the main symptom is Krishnaik Eka Sharanam. You surrender to Krishna with body, mind and words. That is the main symptom. But then also it is mentioned the qualities of a devotee. He's humble, he's controlling the mind and the senses, he's not desiring anything from this world, he's compassionate, he's silent, only speaking about Krishna. So these are described. And so many of them are described the next few days. Okay? So come to the classes.
So what I feel that this, for a devotee, this chapter is most important.
Very important chapter, the 12th chapter.
For a devotee.
Very important, yes.
So along with this chapter, we should study our personally nectar of devotion also.
Yes, nectar of devotion, very
We get better
important.
knowledge.
Yes, yes, nectar of devotion is very important to read. But this chapter is important, very important. Yes. And the 15th chapter is also important. 15th, Purushottam Yoga. Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna.